very rarely see the combination of size, the girth, the speed, the strength, the great understanding of the game. Reggie White had an intuition about football that very few players are able to attain.
Reggie takes him down back at the 17-yard line of the 49ers.
Reggie was probably the only guy during my 13 years that you could legitimately say that opponents, including coaches, were kind of afraid of what he could do.
Rutledge comes back to throw and is hammered by Reggie White. Watch him like someone shot him out of there.
You break the huddle, and your back is to the defense. And then all of a sudden, you spin around, you walk up, and Reggie White is in a position to line up over you. And you sit there and you say, what did I do to deserve this?
Reggie White may have very well had the most explosive first step of any defensive end in the history of the National Football League.
Double team, triple team, 4 people on him, and he would still just toss grown men aside.
He would rip up the field, and if the offensive lineman would latch onto his arm, he would drive until he got the offensive lineman's weight leaning, and then he would just reverse the hand and slap the guy over. And everybody would be like, wow.
Reggie could actually screw up. He could step with the wrong foot and do everything wrong textbook, but because he was so strong and quick, he'd recover and just throw somebody down and just go make the sack anyway.
Reggie's a very nice man, as opposed to a Joe Green, who was very mean-spirited when he played. I cannot imagine what Reggie White would have accomplished had he been really mean. I think it would have been almost dangerous.
To quarterbacks especially, Reggie White was a bad dream. When he retired after 15 seasons in the NFL, his 198 sacks were a record. He was selected a record 13 straight times for the Pro Bowl, and in 2006 was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But beyond his athletic virtuosity, White pursued a higher calling.
Swing low, sweet chariot. Swing low, sweet chariot. Swing low, sweet chariot. Coming forth to carry me home.
He didn't define himself as a football player. He defined himself as a minister that played football. Reggie said to me one time, football is what I did, it's not who I am.
Very seldom would Reggie ever talk to any of us about football. It was always about God. And that's the way he approached you every day. Not more so that you was his brother on the team, but that you would be his brother in heaven.
He wanted you to believe in the Lord, and he wanted to know what was going on in your life. You know, do you have needs? What's happening with your family? How are you doing as a person?
The dialogue would always move beyond football. His desire and hope for mankind truly matched his desire to win Super Bowls.
Reggie White was always a man in search of something. A lot of players have to have athletic goals, personal goals. Reggie had that. Reggie wanted to win, but he also wanted to get his message out.
He always thought of football as the platform for him to preach. If you didn't want to listen, that's fine. But he was going to keep preaching because he felt it was his right.
Kingdom of God starts in our hearts. When Jesus comes in and begins to make us just like he is.
Aikman back to throw on first down. Reggie White with the pressure, and he's down. The 10th sack of the season.
Media people would ask Reggie, how can you be involved in such a violent sport and still be a Christian? And Reggie's response is, football is not a violent sport. It's a contact sport, and I am not trying to hurt someone.
He'd come in and he'd try and rip your head off, and then he'd reach down and help you up. You know, hey, God bless you. Wait a minute, man. You can't rip my head off and then be nice to me. I mean, come on. That's not right.
We played Detroit in a preseason game, and this lineman held Reggie after playing. Reggie said, quit holding me, you know, and this guy started cussing Reggie up and down.
And the guy, you know, said something that was really, you know, off the wall, and Reggie turned to him. He said, buckle it up next time because Jesus is coming.
When they came out of the huddle, Reggie put it down and said, here comes Jesus.
Reggie hit this lineman and lifted him in the air and threw him into the quarterback. And Reggie looks at the lineman and said, don't you ever cuss me again.
For all his ferocity as a player, White was another man off the field.
He was a big teddy bear. He would just lick my daughter's cheeks. He was just very playful, and he loved to see people laugh, and he always wanted to be the clown. He was even a clown in junior high and high school.
His personality was outgoing, loving. He'd come in and he'd joke around with you. The next thing you know, he's performing a wrestling move on you.
To call Reggie's voice raspy would not even do it justice. He was the kind of person that you would hear before you'd see him.
Leonard, your mama is so...
You know, and so one of the things that we did, we always joined on each other's mama. So when I think of him, I think of somebody that was kind, gentle, and loved to play all the time.
He just came across as being a regular person, a regular man, and people just naturally gravitated to him because he was just one of those guys that said, hey, you know, every day I put my pants on one leg at a time. I'm just a man, but I got a mission in life.
Reggie would not keep many things inside of him. He was very, very much an expressive person. He had no lack of confidence, even as a young person.
Reggie White was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee on December 19, 1961. His parents, Thelma Dodds and Charles White, never married. At an early age, he had a plan.
He was 8 years old, and he said, Thelma, when I become a young man, he said, I'm going to play professional football, and you'll never have to worry about anything else.
Our father was an athlete. He was a high school athlete. He also played minor league baseball. And Reggie emulated him. Reggie wanted to be the son of Charles White. Even though he wasn't physically there all the time, he was there in Reggie's spirit. My mom gave Reggie, I think, this spirit of loving everyone. I think also she gave him toughness, hanging in there, grabbing hold to something, making sure that you finish it.
I think his grandmother gave him strength and faith and belief in himself that if he believed he could do it, he could do it.
His grandmother played an important role in all the kids' lives. She came from a religious background. Her uncles were ministers. As children, we all went to Sunday school and church every Sunday. And she picked up with that same thing with her grandchildren.
Becoming a minister was something that he always wanted to do. Just from sitting with my grandma while she was reading her Bible or attending church with my grandma. That seed was just planted at an early age.
I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. Way down by the riverside. Way down by the riverside. I'm gonna lay down.
Confirmed a Christian at 13, White became an ordained minister 4 years later. With his spiritual itinerary set in stone, he went forth to save souls.
He carried his Bible with him everywhere he went. He wanted to share that with everybody at a younger age.
In the locker room and on the football field, he was always witnessing to people. I remember him saying, "Jesus, we got to get them saved. We got to get them saved, man. They curse all the time. They just misusing women and all kinds of stuff. I'm gonna get them saved." It's like, okay, Reggie, okay.
I think people took his spirituality for weakness. He was tough, but then he would let people bully him as well.
When he was young, and there was sometimes Thelma would go to work and I'd keep him, he'd actually cry the entire time Thelma was gone.
He was just so attached to my mom, and his friends would joke with him about being a mama's boy.
It was a long time before he really got aggressive as a big kid. Never really wanted to hurt anyone. So I found myself in situations trying to protect this big guy who actually was almost as large as I was.
One day during his sophomore year, White's high school football coach, Robert Pulliam, attempted to stoke the fires of his aggression on the basketball court.
We had a little pickup game, and at that point I began to, kind of roust him and challenge him physically. Next thing you know, you see a couple of tears come out. I was going to continue to press him in that manner until I felt that he actually grown inside
as far as a competitor, that he could stand before any man.
He just kind of messed with him to make him a little meaner so that when he did make those tackles or knock those players down, he wouldn't get up and say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't really mean to do that.
We had the student-faculty basketball game, and I remember the one distinct rebound that I kind of pushed him out of the way and, took from him. And next thing you know, myself and the ball went flying across Reggie's shoulders. But when I got up off the floor and I took a step at him, instead of running down court, Reggie just stopped and squared up. The little boy had become a man.
At Howard High School, White won All-State honors in basketball and All-America honors in football. In 1980, the senior was named the nation's two-sport player of the year.
He was an outstanding athlete in high school. He had tremendous agility, quickness, reaction. Just one of the most unusually gifted young athletes that you'll ever see.
On offense, he was a tight end. On defense, he played nose guard and defensive end. And by him being quite larger than the rest of the kids, he kind of outmaneuvered with his size.
Rejecting offers from such football powers as Michigan, Oklahoma, and Ohio State, White chose to stay close to home by accepting a scholarship to Tennessee.
He was actually one of those guys in college that became larger in life, but he wasn't a great player early. He kind of was a little disappointing there when he first went to UT.
Mentally, he wasn't as tough as he probably should have been because basically he's a kind-natured person, and we worked at making him tougher mentally. Talk to him about it. Encourage him to be more aggressive.
Waiting, looking, being pursued. He's dropped on a sack by Reggie White.
As a senior, White's gridiron aggression was in full force. Establishing a school record with 15 sacks, he was named SEC Player of the Year and voted an All-American defensive tackle. In January of 1984, he signed a 5-year, $4 million contract with the Memphis Showboats of the USFL, where he played defensive end and established himself as one of pro football's most gifted players.
Reggie was like a 30-year-old guy playing against the freshman team at some local high school. You'd see him run through the offensive line like the guy wasn't even there.
Yashina's got to run. Look out. Reggie White, the minister of defense, may have put the death knell on the Baltimore Star.
I had an uncle who told me, you have to come see this guy play. And I watched Reggie pretty much the whole game. And my thought as I walked away was, that's the best lineman I've ever seen. And why isn't he in the NFL?
Yashina is in the grass for Reggie White, the minister of defense. Read a sermon to Jack Yashina.
After Reggie White's second season in the USFL, Philadelphia Eagles owner Norman Brayman, who owned his NFL rights, paid a visit to Memphis.
We're meeting in my office here, and he said, well, yeah, this fellow named Reggie White, I don't know much about him, but my people tell me that he's got a chance to play for the Eagles in the 1985 season. I finally said, Mr. Brayman, he's not only better than anybody you've got on the Philadelphia Eagles, he may be better than anybody in the whole doggone NFL.
Our reaction, press, players, so forth, with the Eagles was, fine, it is the USFL. Let's see what happens when he comes over and starts playing in the National Football League.
After signing for 4 years with the Eagles, White said hello to the NFL on September 29, 1985, with 10 tackles, including 3 sacks against the Giants. The next season, White's controlled aggression entered another dimension under new head coach Buddy Ryan and his 46 defense.
It's a blitzing, get in the gaps, go after you kind of a defense. So I thought it was a perfect fit for Reggie in that sense.
We moved him around all over the place, and I used to always laugh that we scare everybody because they don't know where he's going to line up.
He'd line up on every lineman, find their weak point, and that's where he'd stay. I mean, you could line him up anywhere. Right end, left end, D tackle, either side, nose tackle, didn't matter.
You'd come out of the huddle and you'd look and you'd go, Lyman, where's 92? And you're looking, and you know, he's kind of walking around back there, and he just plopped down over the center. You go, that's not good.
That helped out everybody else because, you know, they were so concerned with where he was that other guys get mismatches on players that probably couldn't handle them on a one-on-one situation.
White was never more dominant than during the strike-shortened 1987 season when he dropped the quarterback 21 times in 12 games. However tough a defender, his strongest stand that season may have been made off the field.
Reggie saw it more as right and wrong, as he saw many things. He felt what the players were asking for was right. So his was really a moral stand.
Reggie's thing about that strike year was the dedication of Buddy Ryan. I mean, this guy loved Buddy Ryan. Reggie was like, we're not going to cross the picket line. We're going to do this for our coach. Our coach believes in us, and that's what we're going to do.
2 weeks, why should I have to wait for my money?
Angry football fans returned their tickets in droves, and all up to 45,000 fans wanted no part of strike football.
I still remember the scene outside the hotel where the Eagles were putting their replacement players.
Y'all couldn't even get to training camp. Now you think you don't play for real?
A bunch of the Eagles veterans were all gathered outside the hotel with their picket signs. But it was Reggie who left the sidewalk and walked out and stood in the path of the buses and blocked them from coming in.
In 1992, when White joined a class action suit against the NFL that challenged the restrictions placed on free agency, he took a leadership role.
He was a guy that had a huge voice, and he felt like it was wrong the way players was being treated.
What Reggie believes in, he will definitely stand up for it and won't back down. And he believed in free agency.
He puts his name on, say, hey, yeah, we want free agency, and I want everybody to know that this is unfair, that I should have the ability to play where I need to play, or to go to another team, or I should have that right to do that, like every other American.
Free agency really wouldn't benefit Reggie White because Reggie White was always going to get paid because he was the best at what he did. But to be the shoulder that someone else could stand on, that was the importance of the Reggie White free agency case.
The litigation was settled in December of 1992. After the season, White, who had 124 sacks in 8 seasons with the Eagles, was declared a free agent. Getting more money was only part of his mission.
Reggie White had a desire to win a championship. He didn't feel the same commitment from the administration.
I wasn't going to offer Reggie a contract at that time. I thought it would not make much sense. I don't think Reggie would have come back to Philadelphia unless we gave him $18 million. So you eventually get to a point where you can't have everyone.
I think it was embarrassing for the Philadelphia Eagles as an organization to never even make Reggie White an offer. And it's not like he was on the last couple of years of his career. It was all about money, so Reggie wasn't part of that picture.
It was a sad day when Reggie White decided he wasn't coming back to Philadelphia. I mean, I can remember there was like a 3,000 to 5,000, person rally downtown to try to keep Reggie in Philadelphia.
He had the opportunity to do something that would have a lasting impact on his brethren in the National Football League with the success of free agency. I believe that Reggie was a person who wanted to make his mark.
Reggie White officially ushered the National Football League into the modern era of free agency. For 37 days in 1993, the Minister of Defense traveled the NFL landscape, auctioning his talents to willing suitors.
When you have a chance to get perhaps the greatest defensive end in the history of the National Football League, that's going to be a circus.
We took him to the finest restaurants in Atlanta. They made him the first-class promises. We're going to upgrade the defense. We're going to do this. We're going to stop running and run and shoot.
When we went to the 49ers and we walked into the hotel room, there was a Christian radio station on. And it's like, oh, okay, this is nice, because sometimes the maids leave it on. We later found out that the management did it.
While big market franchises vied for his services, White remained undecided in his search for the right atmosphere in which to play, to prosper, and to pursue his life beyond the gridiron. Awaiting him was a franchise that yearned to return to a distant glory.
Reggie was over in Cleveland, and he did his whirlwind tour there, then stopped by Detroit, and thought, well, hey, as long as I'm this close to Green Bay, they've been calling, trying to get in touch with me, to set something up. I might as well out of courtesy come to Green Bay.
I watched him that whole day, and I watched him really fall in love with the people there, the atmosphere there. And it was the one trip that no one really tried to do anything to really impress us.
Ron Wolf told me that when he was talking to Reggie, he said, you know, you can play any place and be a great player, but he said, you can come to Green Bay and be a legend because of what this place means.
I have to leave my mind and heart open to what God wants me to be and not what Reggie White wants me to be.
Joyful, joyful Lord, we adore thee.
Reggie was really going through a hard time fighting internally where he needed to be. He just continued to pray, you know, where do you want me, where do you want me? Because he knew it was a big decision.
I had read where Reggie said the Lord was going to tell him where to go. And so I said, what the heck, you know, I'm going to leave this message on his answering machine. I phoned, got his answering machine, and said, Reggie, this is God, and I want you to go to Green Bay.
Mike Holmgren's message brought more than just a smile to White's face. In April of 1993, he signed a 4-year, $17 million deal with the Packers. But because he had publicly stated that God would direct him to the right franchise, not everyone believed that he had acted in good faith.
I know that there were a lot of people in the league who thought that that was a sham. It's kind of funny how God and money ended up being the same place.
There's no doubt there were people that thought he used it to his benefit. I think it was tough because he was frustrated. He didn't feel people understood.
It was never really about the money. Reggie was really fighting to gain the big contract and gain everything for his family. At the same time, he was always answering to God. If God wanted him in Green Bay, that's where he was going.
I was really impressed with the coaching staff, with the whole organization, and with the direction the team is going. I think that they have a total commitment to winning.
The day that he signed, and they were going to have the news conference for him, only in Green Bay will you have people going up and down Highway 41, honking their horns, flashing their lights. I mean, they were certain they were going to get to the Super Bowl just because of one man.
Thanks for coming, big guy. Thanks for coming.
Once he walked into that locker room, things changed. And people respected him, and he demanded their respect, and he demanded that people put out and play on Sundays and be ready.
I remember having a team meeting where it was players only, and Reggie stood up and basically just challenged every man in the room and said, if we truly want to be champions, we have to make sacrifices, and it has to start right now.
He made the players around him better because they wanted to be better. Brett Favre's told me, I don't know how many times, Reggie White, by far the greatest leader I've ever played with.
We want to get back. We got to be hungry, and we got to dominate when we line up on this field now.
The influence of White's dramatic locker room presence was felt beyond Green Bay.
When you think about Reggie White, an African-American, going to the Green Bay Packers, you think about immediately the credibility that he gave to that franchise and that other African-American players would consider Green Bay as a place to go.
There wasn't a large African-American population in the city. And so I think it had, at least around the league, you had this feeling like it was not the best place to go if you're an African-American athlete. We were bound and determined to change that feeling.
It tore down all stereotypes that you heard about Green Bay. And that opened the door for people to look at Green Bay a little different. Not the team that people would say, man, I'm not going up there, it's too cold, that's like going to Siberia.
When I heard that, man, they want to trade for me, I was like, yeah, you won't hurt my feelings, Seattle, if you trade me to Green Bay? Not one bit. I said, I'm going to go play there with Big Dog.
As Packers GM Ron Wolf signed additional impact players, Green Bay steadily improved, going 11-5 in 1995, then 13-3 the next season, reaching the Super Bowl against the Patriots.
From Tennessee, number 92, Reggie White.
White's record 3 sacks helped secure the Packers' first NFL title in 29 years.
And here goes Bledsoe back. Here they come. Reggie. They got him again. Back in the 20. Hello, Reggie. The Vince Lombardi Trophy is coming home where it started.
The aura of Reggie White was tremendous, both in the locker room, in the community, in the entire state of Wisconsin. It was an incredible demonstration of fan support for one individual player.
There was a poll, I believe, at one time that if Reggie had run for governor, he could have won after the Super Bowl.
In the 1997 season, the Packers made it back to the Super Bowl, only to be upset by the Broncos. 2 months later, White caused a considerable stir with some radical commentary.
The worst thing that Reggie White ever did was just to speak his mind. A large African-American man with the backbone of religion threatened a lot of people.
Racism is what motivated people to kill Jews. It's what motivated people to kill black Africans.
One of the things that happens with anybody, and particularly an athlete who says that they are a Christian, people have doubt. And people start thinking that maybe these guys are frauds. And that was going on in the minds of many people with Reggie White.
It kind of became a circus, you know, with him continually saying that God was healing him, and it made you wonder, well, why would God heal him instead of, you know, someone who's dying from cancer, for instance?
Well, this is what I told Reggie. I said, look, knowing who you are and the stand that you set for Christ, that you follow the Lord, man, I'm telling you, you better get ready for the firestorm.
The firestorm raged after Reggie White appeared before the Wisconsin State Legislature on March 25, 1998.
Homosexuals are trying to compare their plight with the plight of black men or black people. In the process of history, homosexuals have never been castrated. Millions of them never died. Homosexuality is a decision. It's not a race.
I think he felt that he was doing the Lord's work, sometimes talking about these things. Maybe at times he should have done a little more homework.
When you look at the black race, black people are very gifted in what we call worship and celebration. A lot of us like to dance, and if you go to a black church, you see people jumping up and down. White people were blessed with the gift of structure and organization.
When he started making some of those comments, that's when they heaved those rocks and said, here we go. See, it's a stereotypical guy. He's single-minded.
Hispanics were gifted in family structure. And you can see a Hispanic person, and they could put 20, 30 people in one home.
You heard this, and it's just like, oh, he's not saying that. Oh, stop. Oh, he said that. Oh.
The Asian is very gifted in creation, creativity, and inventions. If you go to Japan or any Asian country, they can turn a television into a watch.
He has issues in the back of his mind all the time. And whenever he gets a platform, if he feels like he can address those issues, he'll do it.
And you look at the Indians, they've been very gifted in the spirituality. When you put all of that together, guess what it makes? It forms a complete image of God.
After that moment, Reggie White's image was never the same, because people started looking at this guy as a nut.
My whole message was based on trying to get people to come together and work together, because if we did that, then there would be a difference.
So in short, you stand by everything that you said?
Yes, I stand by everything I said.
He believed what he said when he was talking about homosexuality, but he also said he does not hate the sinner, but he hates the sin. It hurt him because no one saw the big picture of his speech.
I think the people that jumped to criticize him were opportunistic in their own way. I mean, those were people that didn't really understand Reggie. Those were people that never really spent any time with him. People are about what they do, you know, and I saw Reggie do a lot.
He felt God gave him the ability to play football the way he did. So with that came a lot of money, with that came a lot of fame, with that came a lot of power. And he felt that he had to put that back in to the community.
He would talk about some of the things going on up in North Philadelphia and West Philadelphia, and how he could help some of the people, how he could go up and galvanize them to show them that not only should they believe in the gospel, but he wanted kids to learn how to read.
Reggie would just walk in there and he would just start talking to the people. Everybody knew who he was. They wanted his autograph. He would sit down and he would talk to the kids and joke around a lot. He felt like he had to be a part of that inner city ministry.
You're gonna go tell a drug dealer, hey man, why are you doing this? You need to stop doing this. You need to give your life to Jesus. They don't want to hear that. They want to influence. They want to see things happen.
We had a guy who would always show up after practice, and we knew this guy was addicted to drugs. And he would always come up and say, "Can you give me some money? Can I have some money? I'm hungry." And Reggie would always say, "I'm not going to give you money, but I'll take you and I'll sit you down. I'll take you out to dinner."
In the town of Green Bay, where the community gave so much to him with love and adoration, he gave so much to the community, not only by leading the team to a Super Bowl, but by starting a project by the name of Urban Hope.
Urban Hope is an entrepreneurial program that basically gives people an opportunity to study with very capable business people, and ultimately they're given some assistance in opening up their own business.
It was taking girls who were pregnant to not have abortions, so we started the Unwed Mother's Home in Tennessee. It was starting the inner city bank in Knoxville, the Habitat for Humanity houses. So for Reggie, it was all about helping people, and I think that was just part of our life.
Another big part of White's life was his wife, Sarah, whom he met when he was an underclassman at Tennessee. Married in January of 1985, they had 2 children, Jeremy and Jacoya. Sarah also served as a check on her husband's generosity.
Sarah always had to jump in there and tell him, "Well, you quit giving everybody your money or your time. You know, you have to save some for the family." Sarah was that rock. Well, she almost had to protect him like a kid at times.
Sometimes churches or Christian ministries, they'd tell Reggie, "Okay, I need $50,000 to start this for the inner city kids, a lab or something." And a year later, where's the lab? Or $50,000 we gave to start a TV connection where people can learn through the computer. And they needed this money for this equipment. Okay, it never happened.
There are pastors who recognize that I have a guy, Reggie White, who everyone knows. Boy, if I put Reggie up on my pulpit, the congregation will be filled up to the hilt. We might get a couple of new members, but I know one thing, when that offering plate goes around, we're gonna be living large.
He realized that people wanted him to give sermons because of who he was. Reggie White, future Hall of Famer.
There's a part of Reggie that was sensitive, where he wanted to be approachable, wanted to make people understand that he was just a common man's man. And because of that, though, there were also some people that really took advantage or tried to take advantage of those situations. And I think at times it really left him conflicted.
When I get out on the field, to me, my life on the field represents my life off the field. When I find something I believe in, I go all out with it, knowing that my life might be at stake.
Reggie talked always about how football was a platform for him to have a greater calling and to reach more people through a religious avenue. The fact was, I think football to a large degree did identify Reggie White, and it was terribly difficult for him to give the game up.
Following his retirement in 1999, Reggie White returned in 2000 with Carolina. After 1 season with the Panthers, he retired for good and pursued a reappraisal of his religious life.
Reggie was never satisfied with anything. And when it came to religion, he was not satisfied with other people's interpretation. There was a building resentment of organized religion for him that developed over the years.
He felt that he was repeating stuff that he had read, that other people had told him, that he was just mouthing religious platitudes that he had picked up along the way. And he said that, when I look back on it, I wasn't a preacher as much as I was a motivational speaker. And that frustrated him.
There was a time of when there was a realization to him that God told me to go to Green Bay. He said that was ridiculous to say. Shouldn't have said that. That's not true.
One of his biggest regrets was the speech he made before the Wisconsin State Legislature. That, to him, typified other people's ideas about people. It was one of the reasons that he felt he had to go back to the source.
After being one of the most visible Christian athletes, White stopped attending church. Instead of preaching and celebrating Christmas, he began studying Hebrew and Old Testament scripture.
His purpose in studying Hebrew was to try and get some type of definitive answers. He saw that the message he was preaching wasn't exactly reflected in Scripture, and he wanted to know what is really the will of the Creator.
People can read the Bible and interpret it to suit their situation. He wanted the true meaning.
He had gotten himself to the point where he could actually read Hebrew, because his thing was, if I'm going to live my life for God and do what God wants me to do, I have to know the truth.
He had an urgency to know more and more and more and to get closer to the Father.
I would call him and, friend, what are you doing? Studying. You know, and if I called him 3 hours later, friend, what are you doing? Studying. His love for the Word and for the truth was like nothing I've ever seen in my life.
Reggie and his family made several trips to Israel over the years. The last trip he made, he went with a friend, and he was allowed to enter this vault and look at these manuscripts in Hebrew. And he was so proud that he could actually read some of them himself.
Reggie was really moved by this. At the end of the day, he made the remark that this was the best day of his life. And I said, you won the Super Bowl. You really mean this was the best day of your life? And he turned to me and he said, this was an answer to prayer.
It really inspired him and renewed his faith, if you will, in saying, you know what, I am going down this path, and this path that I'm going down, I'm excited to go down now.
Those close to Reggie respected him to the point where they said, if this is what he needs to do, we support him doing it. Those who did not know Reggie, people in the church community, ostracized him.
A lot of times he was misunderstood because somebody would walk up to him and say, hey man, how you doing? Yeah, I heard you think you're Jewish now. You know, I heard you change your faith.
A lot of people thought that he was turning his back on Christianity, which in fact, he was really moving forward. It wasn't that he was closing the door, he was trying to get Christianity to get to another level of understanding.
In 1994, White was diagnosed with sarcoidosis, a rare disease that can attack any organ in the body, especially the lungs. White, who also suffered from sleep apnea, began to break down.
He was having a hard time catching his breath when he walked up the steps, and he was having a hard time with this hacking cough. His cough was an indication that his sarcoidosis was flaring up because it was in his lungs. But a lot of people live with sarcoidosis for, you know, they can live 70, 80 years.
Sometimes when he would call, you could hear in his voice that he had this rawness in his voice. And when I'd ask him sometimes, you know, do you feel okay? Is it bothering you? And he would never tell you that it is.
On Christmas night of 2004, the White family went to the movies. Early the next morning, Sarah awoke to hear her husband's labored breathing.
Reggie was snoring, as always, and I just pushed him just a little bit to stop snoring. And he kind of just moved around, and then he started hacking and coughing. And I said, quit playing, because it was like 7 o'clock in the morning. But he kept coughing, and so I turned the light on and saw that he wasn't doing well. So then I called 911. I did mouth-to-mouth, and then real quickly, the paramedics came, and then I got out the room, and I prayed.
I was trusting God, you know, and I was praying for him in my mind, but I really just wanted to go back to bed. I climbed back into bed, and they said, do you want to go to the hospital? I said, no. I said, he's going to be fine.
The hospital was like 10 minutes from my house. When I got there, one of Reggie's neighbors was standing outside, and he came over, and he just put his arm around me. And I asked him, I was like, what's going on? And all I remember is just falling to the floor. And I was just crying and crying and crying. I kept asking, what happened?
Former NFL great defensive end Reggie White died this morning of a massive heart attack.
An autopsy confirmed that White's death was due to cardiac arrhythmia and irregular heartbeat. The report also stated that his ailment was caused by complications from sarcoidosis.
I got a call from Anthony Pleasant, and I remember saying, "Give me good news, AP." What did he say? He didn't make it.
I couldn't even talk. Couldn't say anything. You know, I mean, you think... I think the thing that was so hard is that you think about you'll never be able to talk to your friend again.
Time stopped for that moment. I was just like, what? I think that was the first thing that came out of my mouth was, what? Somebody's got to give me an explanation. We had just went to the movies last night. Nothing was wrong with him. How does he slip into a heart attack?
I really couldn't believe it. He had been through so much. You know, he's such a strong person. He had so much to give to the world. And I think I was more or less worried about my kids, and I think that's what held me together.
Life is a journey, and on that journey, Reggie dared to be different. Reggie dared to deal with controversy. He dared to deal with what was true. I believe that if he believed it and he knew it to be true, that's what he was going to give you.
One day before he died, White told his family of a dream in which he discovered a treasure while traveling in the Middle East. Written on the treasure, he said, were two words in Hebrew.
And the Hebrew words were Padoy La Yehovah. And when Reggie woke up from the dream, he was really excited, and he saw these words in his dream, but he wasn't exactly sure what they meant.
He went and looked them up just to see if they meant anything, and they meant redeemed. And what he saw was redeemed in Jehovah's name. You're redeemed, so you can just come on home now.